Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. It's me, Addy, again, and today I wanted to bring you folks a quick impressions video on Elden Ring Nightreign, FromSoftware's latest dark fantasy adventure with an emphasis on the multiplayer experience. Now, I'm sure many of you have gotten the chance to play it by now this past weekend, considering the crazy player count. I mean, there were, around 300,000 concurrent players in the first hour of the game being out on Steam? Freaking crazy, man. But for those of you who haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, I want to approach this video from a more unique angle. I'm not going to break down every single gameplay mechanic or give you guys a full overview of this thing or anything like that, since, that's been done to death already. I more specifically want to address whether you'll enjoy Nightreign if you played and enjoyed, well, Elden Ring. Now, this is what I was wondering myself a whole bunch ever since the game dropped last Thursday. I've got 20 plus hours of playtime over just this weekend alone across multiple save files on both PC and PS5, both on and off stream, which should make it pretty clear that I kinda live and breathe Soulsborne games. I mean, I pretty much played all of them, with Bloodborne being my second favorite game of all time, of course, and base Elden Ring being my 2022 game of the year. So yeah, these games are kind of a big deal to me, but not some of the smaller multiplayer aspects sprinkled throughout, which Nightreign expands upon. So that said, I want to mention that I'm not a huge multiplayer guy. I've always been more of a solo adventurer when it comes to video games in general, and I've seldom ever interfaced with all the PvP and PvE elements in the Soulsborne games. But to my surprise, I nevertheless found Nightreign to be way more fun and way more addictive than I expected. So, will you like Nightreign if you liked Elden Ring? The short answer is yes, with a couple of big asterisks. If you loved the PvE aspect of Elden Ring's co-op, summoning your buddies to help fight bosses, watching them get wrecked, helping them get unwrecked, and taking on monsters together, then Nightreign is like dedicating an entire game to just that. It's basically the PvE co-op fantasy turned up to 11. On top of that, if you liked experimenting with weapons in Elden Ring, you'll get a kick out of Nightreign's randomized drops each run. There's a certain thrill in grabbing some random crazy bleed weapon or giant hand ballista or something like that and thinking to yourself, okay, this will be the run. It really taps into that roguelike excitement, but with FromSoftware polish, which has definitely been my favorite aspect of the game thus far. If you ever wished Elden Ring's co-op was seamless and drop-in, drop-out friendly, Nightreign basically achieves that. You load in with your squad, dive into Limveld, and everything from there is fast, fluid, and group-oriented. And Soulsborne fans will notice all sorts of callbacks. Bosses like Smelter Demon and Duke's Dear Freya make appearances as mini-bosses, giving the game a FromSoft All-Stars flavor that fans of the Dark Souls series will especially appreciate. Those two bosses in particular were from Dark Souls 2, and as someone whose entry point into the series was DS2 way back in the day when it first released in 2014, these were some nice nostalgic touches from a game I have a soft spot for. Now, to look at the flip side, if what you loved about Elden Ring was its slow pacing, build variety, and the chance to deeply invest in your character over dozens of hours, this might not hit the same. Nightreign is fast, with a capital F. You literally drop it in the world on the back of giant eagles like you're parachuting into a fantasy-themed battle royale. There's no slow build up here, you're fighting for your life within minutes, with a fiery circle closing in on you over time. And yeah, build variety is pretty limited here. You choose from preset classes at the start of every run, and while the loot you find can shake things up, you're not min-maxing a detailed character over time or anything like that. It's more about moment-to-moment adaptability than long-term planning. And this fast pacing, especially with the map closing in on you, really forces constant motion. Some people love that, and others might understandably find it exhausting. Now personally, I think Nightreign is one of the boldest genre mashups FromSoft has attempted, to say the least. As someone who loves roguelikes, they're easily my second favorite genre behind Soulsborne's, this game hit a sweet spot. We touched on this before, but that procedural generation, that sense of next run will be better, all layered on top of a Souls-like core, as Todd Howard would say, just works. Even the Battle Royale elements, something I typically have zero interest in, are palatable here because it's all drenched in that Elden Ring DNA. For fans of BR games who maybe found Souls games too punishing to play, Nightreign could be a weirdly perfect gateway drug. But fair warning, if you're not into boss rushes, if you're not into fast resets or that go 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 type energy, then it may not be your cup of tea. So let's talk about the broader reception for a second. Metacritic has Nightreign at 77, the lowest score for any FromSoft Soulsborne title to date. IGN gave this game a 7, and I know it's popular to dogpile on IGN due to their largely obtuse takes, but to be real with you guys, in this instance, I'm almost inclined to agree with those, even though I'd personally give Nightreign about an 8. I do get it. There are a good bit of key features missing here at launch, which you definitely feel the lack of when you play. For one, the game doesn't have duos, which is a big deal. Solo play, while available, feels unbalanced, and two friends playing with a random can be an unpleasant experience, especially due to the lack of in-game communication features. It's also a pain during matchmaking when you and your friend are looking for a third to play with, and it takes forever due to the fact that at the moment, not everyone has made it far enough into the game where they've beaten that first Night Lord and can queue up with others to take on the rest. Yeah, this game needs duos and it needs to be more solo friendly. And I know, FromSoft are putting out patches and they said they'll continue to do so in order to address these things, but that's still no excuse, especially for aspects that are essential to a paid experience like this from the get-go. And of course, there are bugs.
He's coming, careful.
Ooh.
I got the
Huge. Oh, what?
No,
That's
it's a bug.
that's a
Doesn't know how to
bug.
deal with that? That's so bad.
That is a bug.
We lost.
Yeah, it said defeated for me.
I'm still in here. What?
Wait, really?
The boss
What?
stood still for me.
Or-
Adi, watch my share screen.
Wait. He's just frozen like that?
Dude, if he gets credit for this, it'd be hilarious. I hope you get credit for
This is absolutely
You really do.
mental, man. So the game said both me and Rob just lost. We were straight up given the defeated screen. Ricky stays in
I see
there.
him resurrecting too. Like I see him coming.
Yeah.
To, like,
Ricky stays in and the boss freezes and now Ricky's just gonna go to
fade to
town.
black.
Unbelievable, man. Blessed bug.
Oh my!
It actually worked.
It actually works. Wow. It just works. Elden Ring Nightreign edition. Please patch these from. Thank you. Some of my other critiques would have to do with the world design and presentation. In particular, a lot of the ruins where you can take on a bunch of smaller mini-bosses for some helpful loot feature these foes in groups where every member is so heavily scattered around these areas that you end up unnecessarily wasting valuable time in hunting each and every one of them down. They shouldn't be this difficult to track down. It seriously feels at times like you're looking for needles in haystacks while working against the clock, when you shouldn't be. There are also some little things like enemies being able to jump in and out of the fiery circles during boss fights, which can be annoying even if you have an archer to contend with them, and also random bosses occasionally spawning in your Everjails, which are locations that you go to fight a very specific boss. One of the most cumbersome things is when you're doing so, only to be interrupted by a giant boss off to the side who decides to take part in the battle you're already fighting. And while the major bosses or Night Lords are much appreciated for being completely unique to this game and also look incredible, seriously, their second phases are a breathtaking sight to behold, there's not much build up to them. You get the same cutscene of opening the same giant white door every time that leads into a vast sandy arena without much pageantry. It's just, here's the boss, now go die. Obviously I haven't finished the game yet, so I'm hopeful that maybe the final Night Lord has something unique to offer in this regard, but so far, it seems like every Night Lord has been presented the same way. But in spite of all this, I'd once again give Nightreign about an 8. I've enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to, and ironically, the class I've had the most fun with was the Archer. I've never liked archery builds in any Soulsborne game before, instead opting to go for heavier, clunkier builds that incorporate power stancing in some way, but in Nightreign, helping my teammates from afar feels super rewarding, especially against those agile Night Lords who love zipping around the arena and can be nigh unhittable at times by your melee teammates. The synergy with your team matters. I also want to say that the meta progression system, where you unlock relics to buff your classes between runs of the Round Table Hold, is pretty neat. Beyond that though, progression feels a little bare bones, so I'm hoping future patches add even more options beyond relics and character skins, just so that there are a few more interesting things to do at the Round Table. But yeah, ultimately, I need duos as soon as possible. I usually play in a trio, but when it's just me and my brother on PS5, the third rando we queue up with is often MIA, off doing God knows what, which makes it almost impossible to take on a lot of the bosses and challenges to get stronger, since they demand that all three players are grouped up together to face them effectively. Communication is key in this game, and when you don't have it, it's rough. Also, it's 2025, so the lack of crossplay, which I feel should be an industry standard, is kind of insane. I ended up having to double dip and get this game again on PlayStation 5 just to play with my brother, and I feel like I shouldn't have had to do that. But yeah, overall, Nightreign is a great time if you go in with the right expectations. It's not Elden Ring 2, it's not even trying to be. It is a smaller, focused, fast-paced experiment by FromSoft, built on the bones of Elden Ring's mechanics, but designed for tight co-op and high replay gameplay. So if you've got friends to play with, you're going to have a blast. And I do love how the boss fights are just as challenging as anything you'd expect from the genre, especially early ones here like Gladius and the Gaping Jaw, My friends and I spent a good chunk of the weekend just figuring them out. But when we finally did, that rush that we actually did it feeling, that's peak FromSoft right there. I'm happy to say that that aesthetic is here and it's intact. Let's go! We got him! Hell yeah.
Beautiful guy.
GG's, guys. That was awesome. What a sick boss. So there's a lot of potential here. I'd love to see new classes, maps, progression features, maybe even some lore stuff, even though personally I'm not huge on Elden Ring's lore, because it's possible that the gameplay loop here is going to become repetitive rather quickly. You're always dropping into Limveld, and while the central biome changes between fiery craters, snowy mountains, etc., you're still running through mostly the same key structures and ruins, just in different places. But to me at least, that novelty hasn't worn off yet, and I can see myself having fun with this for a good while yet. And it's worth mentioning that for 50 Canadian, it's a steal. FromSoft could have easily charged full price, but this isn't a mainline Miyazaki project, it's something smaller in scope, priced accordingly, and without any microtransactions. When those could have been easily included for things like 2 additional character classes, which instead of being paywalled, are cool secrets that you'll have to unlock as you play. This is, of course, always appreciated. So, to bring it back one more time, should you play Nightreign if you liked Elden Ring? Yeah, if you're open to a faster co-op first experience that dials up the chaos and turns the Elden Ring formula into a boss rush roguelike, it is 100% worth checking out. And I know that may sound like it's a kerfuffle of things, but trust me, when you actually play this game, it'll feel a lot more focused than it may sound like on paper. Now, I don't know if I'll be streaming it again anytime soon, simply because I've got to pour a bunch of hours into Death Stranding and its sequel, which comes out very soon, but I definitely see myself playing more of this off-stream, and even returning to broadcast the rest of the Nightreign experience. So stay tuned for that, which you'll get to check out on my Twitch channel, that of course being twitch.tv/irritableindian. But until then, folks, thanks for watching, praise the sun, and keep on keeping on.